In our last video for this chapter, we're going to talk about the tides, the high and low tides, and the different monthly tides that we might see, and how it's all connected to our moon and the sun. At different times of the day, we might experience different tides or different heights and elevations of our ocean's surface. But the reason why the water seems to change in elevation, getting higher and lower each day and every month, is all due to the gravitational pull of our moon. Because our moon is so large in size and so close to our planet, it's capable of moving large bulges of water closer towards it. So depending on where the orientation of the Earth and the moon is, on a little bit with how the sun deals with all of this, we're going to have different tides or different elevations of water going on our planet at different times. Every day, areas have high and low tides along the coast. And when it's high tide, the water surface is going to be higher in elevation than normal, and at low tide it's going to be lower than normal. Here in Florida, the difference between high and low tide typically isn't that much. It's a few inches. But if we were to go farther north, like the Bay of Fundy, which is shown in this image, there's a huge difference between high and low tide when we're in Canada. In high tide, we can see that all of this area is covered in our ocean water, our boats looking lovely. But if we look at the lower part of this image during low tide for that day, it is so low of low tide that there is no water, and all of these lovely boats are now sitting on dry land. In addition to the daily high and low tides, we also have a monthly tidal cycle. The lunar cycle happens on a 28-day basis, where we have new, full, and then quarter and half moons. We're going to have a spring tide twice a month. And our spring tide is going to occur during our full moon, where we can see the full or the entire moon, as well as the new moon, when we go outside and we can't see the moon in the sky at all. So with this spring tide, the gravitational forces of the moon and the sun are going to add together and have a stronger pull on all of the water on Earth. So this is going to create a larger daily tidal range, so that we have a lower low tide and a higher high tide. So now instead of a normal difference between high and low tide of like 2 feet, during the spring tide, it's going to have an increased range, and now the difference between high and low tide might be 3 feet. And again, this is all due to the fact that the sun, the moon, and the earth are all lining up together. It's going to allow their gravitational forces to add together. But the other 2 weeks of that lunar cycle, we have neap tides. And this happens during our first and third quarters of the moon, where we're only seeing parts of the moon. And with this, we no longer see that the earth, moon, and sun all line up together. Instead, our earth and moon are going to be at different angles than the earth and the sun. So this is going to offset the gravitational forces coming from the moon and the sun, and it's going to decrease our daily tidal range. So this is going to be a lower high tide and a higher low tide. Instead of having a normal 2-foot difference between high and low tide, during our neap tides, it might only be a 1-foot difference between high and low tides.